Hello and welcome to this afternoon's webinar about work-life balance. Just before we get started, if you can hear me and see the PowerPoint on your screen that says work-life balance, can you please just type in yes? Okay, great. So I'm getting lots of yeses. So this is Sophie from English Australia, and I'm going to introduce today's presenter, Donna Cook. So Donna Cook is currently the Academic Manager at ACU English Language Centre in Brisbane, and she has over 20 years experience as a leader and an educator in the ELICOS sector and also in the schools and higher education sectors, both in Australia and overseas. Donna is a previous English Australia board member and Queensland State delegate, and she's also one of the main organisers of the English Australia Queensland PD Fest, which is a highly successful annual event. Donna's also managed and led academic management and teaching teams in ELICOS, and she comes to us with a wealth of experience to present today's webinar. So thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Sophie, and thank you for the introduction. So Sophie and Aparna, some time ago, Aparna Jacob, asked me if I might present a webinar on work-life balance, and my immediate reaction was, yes, sure, because that's what I do. I say yes. And then, of course, I thought, oh, my goodness, I don't know anything about work-life balance. If anything, I'm quite unbalanced as well as and out of balance with work and life. So I thought, well, work-life balance is a topic of conversation. So I started looking at women's magazines and I started looking at what HR policy makers were doing, and then thought, what do I do when I really want to know about something? And I thought, I'm going to chat to other women. So I selected some women that I respected and I thought would have some insight and wisdom to share on the area of work-life balance. And I've combined this with my own experience to put together this webinar. So, excuse me, this is the first time I've ever presented in webinar form. So I'm hoping that it all works as though it is supposed to. But so through conversations with women in key leadership positions, these women were not in the ELICOS sector, but they are all from the education sector, so I thought it would be good to get a broader perspective as well. So I explored the concept of work and life and balance, and I'm going to share the reflections from those conversations and from some of my own ideas with you during the webinar. So the intended audience, this is part of the English Australia Women in Leadership series. So the intended audience is, I guess, managers or emerging leaders, but I think that even if you're not in the ELICOS sector and even if you are not in any kind of leadership or management position, there is something for everyone and some wisdom to gain from this. It is part of the Women in Leadership series, but I'm sure there's also, if there are any men that have joined us, welcome, because there's also something for men, I think, through this, because one thing that did become clear through speaking to people was that this is not an issue that's exclusively for women, that men are very much an important part of the equation, and it's something that applies to everybody, pretty much everybody who has a job. Okay, so the areas I have explored in these conversations is the first one, to think about whether work-life balance is actually a useful concept. There's some discussion about that. And then the idea of work-life conflict and how this might impact on our lives, and whether in what way is work-life balance important to us personally and to us as managers, and then some advice from the women I spoke to and from myself on finding balance. Now, I would like everybody to think about these questions. As we go through, I will ask you to, and for some of these questions, to type ideas in the chat box, and Sophie will share those with everybody. And for others, I will just ask you to, reflect on this and think about this yourself. And at the end, there'll be question time and also time for comments. So if you've got anything to add, everybody is as much an expert in this area as I am. So it'd be great at the end of the slides to share wisdom from all over, if you have any insights to share with us. So before I move on to introducing the women that provided the inspiration for the webinar, I thought I would just mention a little bit about my life. Sophie has given you my work context, but this is my life context. So you can see my life has changed significantly in the last 13 years. So 13 years ago, I had 4 children that could fit in 2 laundry baskets, and it is an understatement to say that life was busy. Having 4 kids in 6 years, balance was probably not something I even had time to think about. I did have a job through the whole time of raising my children, but I only went back to full-time work about 10 years ago. So most of it I was only working 2 or 3 days a week. And I must say at that time it was life, and work was the break from life, the holiday, the time to disconnect from the duties of being a mum. It was absolutely the best time of my life. In retrospect, it was an amazing time, but I was too tired to know that when it was happening. So my perspective, context and experience is very much that of the working mother, and the perspective of the women that I have interviewed. But work-life balance, as I mentioned, is not a concept that is exclusive to women, to parents, or to mothers. So as you can see, my life has changed a little bit in 13 years, and now life is a lot easier than it was when I had 4 small children in a new city with no support, which is what happened when we first moved to Brisbane. But it's still a juggle, and it's still a challenge, and there is a constant reminder to think about balance. So now for the women that I interviewed. So sorry about that. Okay, so the first person I interviewed was Sujata Stead, and many of you may know her already. She is the CEO of Cambridge Box Hill Language Assessment. She is responsible for the successful transformation of the occupational English test. And she has 2 children. When she is not working, Sujata enjoys spending time with and looking after her young family, cooking, learning about different cultures, and travelling across 4 continents to meet up with her globally dispersed extended family. The second person I chatted to was Dr. Sarah Kelly, who works at the University of Queensland in the law school, has just completed 4 years in the role of MBA Director at the UQ Business School. She's Director of the Brisbane Lions AFL Club, the Wandering Warriors, Somerville House School and Sports Analytics. She recently founded Spark International Student Services, offering academic, lifestyle and career support for international students. And as you can see from the photo, she also has 4 children. And just by the way, all these women are incredibly impressive and inspirational, but I'm just a regular person, so don't feel in any way. These are people that we can learn so much from. The next person that I interviewed is Rebecca Hall. She's the Executive Director of International Education and Training with TIQ, Trade and Investment Queensland. For almost 2 decades, Rebecca has worked to support international education and training. She has held leadership roles with the Gold Coast City Council, Griffith Uni, Queensland Government, TAFE Directors Australia and the Victorian Government. Over the past decade, her not-for-profit board experience includes appointments to the boards of IEAA, AIIA, AFS and QOF, and she has 2 children, Emmy who is 18 and Mia who is 10. And Rebecca particularly spoke about how significant her not-for-profit experience has been by enriching both her work and her life. The next person is Professor Anne Farrell, who is Head of the School of Early Childhood and Inclusive Education, the Faculty of Education at QUT. She is author of more than 100 scholarly publications. She holds a PhD from UQ and an honorary doctorate from Sweden. She serves on the board of the Australian Children's Education and Care Quality Authority and TEXA Teacher Education Expert Panel for Teacher Education. She has 4 children also. And the final person interviewed is Liz Griffin. She is the Associate Director of International Marketing and Recruitment at ACU. And as part of ACU International Senior Management Team, Liz is responsible for all aspects of international marketing and recruitment for ACU. Liz is the newest mum. She's the mum of a lively and spirited toddler, Charlotte, who is 17 months old. And this experience has given Liz renewed appreciation of how important teamwork and time management is, not only in the workplace, but also in the home. So the first question I asked all of these women was, do you think work-life balance is a useful concept? Before we hear about what their contributions were to the discussion, think about whether you think work-life balance is a useful concept or if you've thought about it at all. And if you have something to share, please type it in to the chat box and Sophie will share it with us. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to talk about that and share, please. Anything, Sophie?
Not yet. Okay, there's a few comments coming through now. I'll just give people 30 more seconds to type their comments in before I start reading. Okay, so there's a couple of comments. Somebody said that it's an artificial distinction and that it's not that helpful for them. And another person has said that the concept is good as a reminder to aim for balance in life.
Oh, excellent.
Okay.
And that's very similar to what the women I interviewed had to say, actually. So the first person, Sujata, said that, yes, it's a very useful concept because with this concept in your mind, you are more likely to consciously make a decision to stop and think, and it prevents us from becoming too overly consumed with work. She talked about how managing the occupational English test OET as a startup was all-consuming, and so having the concept of work-life balance in the back of her mind helped her stop and think and bring balance back. And during that time, when she was managing the early days of OET, she actually had her second child, so it was really important to her to get things in balance and not get carried away, but get some perspective on things. But the next person I interviewed, okay, very slow, said no, it's not a useful concept, and it's difficult to keep things even, so the dichotomy is not helpful. Rebecca said that for me, work and life is seasonal, and there are times when I know that I'm going to be out of balance, like trade missions, preparing for a big event. So attempting to keep things even the whole time, or feeling that they should in fact be even, is a source of stress. So she said she tries to be the best that she can be in doing what she's doing at that very time. So if she has something like a big event or a trade mission to do, she makes sure the kids are looked after and builds time with them before or after the event, but she doesn't feel compelled to find balance while involved in something that is consuming her time in that moment. I found this conversation, this part of the conversation, particularly useful because I'm forever feeling guilty and worrying about what I'm not doing rather than focusing what I am doing. So if I'm busy with work, then I feel guilty about not being busy with the kids. And if I'm busy with the kids, then I feel about not being guilty about not being busy with work. So I found Rebecca's take on things really, really useful. Anne said, and similar to one of the respondents said, it was useful as a concept, but it definitely had its limitations. It was useful because any idea that helps us make sense of our everyday lives can be helpful, but all such concepts are inadequate to fully describe the complexity of life. Work-life balance, imbalance, can help us looking at that. It can help empower us to take action and try and get things more in balance, but it's not a clear dichotomy. Liz thought that work-life balance was a very useful concept at an organisational level. There's been a shift into creating flexibility and ensuring flexibility in the workplace, and attitudes to the workplace are changing. And work-life balance as a concept highlights that employees are looking for great careers, but not at the expense of a fulfilling life, so that people want success at work and at home, and it's not a trade-off for one or the other. And whether it's as successful as a concept really depends on different organisations' policies and procedures. Liz felt that ACU's policies and procedures ensured that it is a successful concept at ACU. Now, Sarah said there's no such thing as balance, but perhaps it's about prioritisation, that at different times throughout the day, the month, the year, so similar to Rebecca's idea about life being seasonal, you allocate different priorities to different areas of your life, and with everything that you do, aim to derive purpose and joy and add value, but separating work and life isn't necessarily the right way of going about that. And that not everything needs to happen all at the same time. For me, I think it is a valuable concept, although not a perfect concept, because it prompts us to remember that career, family, friends, health, relaxation, community work, hobbies, holidays, and volunteering are all integral and an important part of life. And we certainly can't give equal or even give any attention to all of those things at the same time. But having the idea that we need to think about work-life balance, covering those things, gives us a little bit more of a healthy focus. And I think it is very important at an organisational level to recognise that work-life balance is important, and that policies need to be in place to ensure that people can achieve work-life balance. I've had challenges with boundaries over the years. So the dichotomy is very useful for me because it encourages reflection, and balance in life generally, I think, is very important. Okay, so the next thing we talked about was work-life conflict. So you don't need to share these ideas in the chat box, but just take a moment to think about the times in your life when things have seemed really out of balance. What prompted those times? How did you deal with them? What was the impact of that time on your work life, on you as a person? So I asked this question to my interviewees, and Sujata talked about when she first moved from Cambridge to Australia and her life was in upheaval, and she brought her husband, who had to give up his job, and her 3.5-year-old son. She uprooted them from their lives, and she moved into a very challenging professional role. So this was certainly a time when work and life were in conflict for her. And what she did at the time was feel an awful lot of guilt, she did say. But to help with the work side of things, she commissioned market research, and they worked on a strategy that would develop the best service for the OET candidates. And on the home front, she made a team decision with her husband that she could only work at this level if he was there supporting her and being an extremely understanding partner, sharing her load. And they also, when her second baby came along, they employed an au pair. So networks are very important, home networks are very important, and nothing comes without some sort of trade-off. She still said she felt really guilty about not spending so much time with her children, but she was able to balance and manage things because of the help she had in the home front and at work. And one thing I have to say, all of these women, the honesty and the sharing that came out through these conversations was really quite overwhelming. I felt very blessed, fortunate to have been hearing their stories and hearing about their experience. And I learnt so much through the whole thing as well. Sujata did say that having, again, like Liz had said about ACU, having Cambridge as an employer was really useful because they recognise the necessity for work-life balance. And also her boss in Cambridge asks her often, are you pushing yourself too hard? Are you working too much? Rebecca talked about her work-life imbalance. Coming about at 24, she became a mum unexpectedly, and she really began her career as a single mother. And this was what she said was her impetus and her reason for pursuing a career. It made her more organised, and it made her realise that there was somebody else that was relying on her. So she had to be more driven. She wanted to do work that was meaningful, that she could make a difference in, but she wanted to do work that she, could support her daughter and finance her life, because whatever we say about work and life, work is absolutely essential for life. She has left jobs and made her career decisions always based around her family circumstances, and has just been fortunate enough to have been given opportunities in work that have been so fulfilling, and the things that she could really make a difference in. Anne talked about how work-life imbalance is exacerbated in times of crisis. So we all go through major family events, bereavement, serious illness. These things can shake us up a bit, and also major events at work or big projects at work, things that are taking a lot of our time and energy, they have an impact on family life as well. There are a lot of things that we can control in our lives, but a lot of things that we can't control. And so it depends on, the season of your life that are in, which is, more sending us out of balance, the work or the life. Liz didn't really see work-life conflict as an issue in her life, but more it was about performing different roles. So she is a wife, a mother, a daughter, and these are all different roles that she performs in her life, and it presents to her a challenge to get organised and acknowledge that she has different parts of life. But she did speak about, pressure points in life. So there are things that, really sort of rock the boat a little bit. She talked about how her young daughter became very ill, and so her first work trip after coming back from maternity leave began just after she'd been in accident emergency with her toddler. And she was, of course, shaken by that, but could trust her team at home, which was her husband in this case, to he was empowered to make the decisions and look after the health of her daughter. So she felt confident that she could go on with her trip. She thinks that you need to be very clear about priorities and what you want out of life in general. And before she started a family, she talked with her husband about, you know, what they wanted their life to look like and how they might approach different scenarios. And Liz talked about her mantra, which actually is very much my mantra in life when things aren't going quite as well as we would want them to. This too shall pass. So whenever you encounter a difficult situation, it's most likely not going to stay difficult forever. She also says that it's easier to avoid conflict if you are really open and honest with your own manager about what your priorities are and what your balancing requirements are at home and at work, and be honest with how you hope to achieve your goals in the workplace while still juggling. And for her, technology plays a really important and positive role for work and life. Sarah talked about the necessity of just letting go of deadlines when life becomes really imbalanced. So she talked about her mother was very ill a couple of years ago, and she was very ill for about a year before she passed away. And Sarah basically she stayed employed, but let all the deadlines go, and knew that what the most important thing to her during that time was her mum and caring for her mum, so work became a second priority. She also does this when kids are sick or have any pressing needs, because family and relationships are what truly matter, despite work being important as well. So the next question I asked them was, how is work-life balance important to you personally? So maybe in light of what I've said so far, you can start thinking about if work-life balance or how work-life balance is important to you personally. So Sujata spoke very warmly about her father, who taught her to believe in herself and believe that we can achieve in anything in life, and that anything is possible if you work hard. So her father's wisdom gave her strength to overcome obstacles, and she found that overcoming obstacles made her more creative and enriched her life. She thinks that family and friends are incredibly important, so it's important not to focus completely on work, but family and friends give you strength to do your job better as well. And she commits fully to her colleagues at work and the OET candidates that she works for, but she does have ever-present guilt about not doing one thing as well as she could, because she's spending more time and focus on something else. Sorry, what happened then? Sorry about this. Just take a second. Okay, so Rebecca always focuses on doing the best job that she can and gives her attention to what she is working on in that moment. It's important for her to engage in employment she enjoys, and she actually said, you know, when she wasn't enjoying employment at different times in her life, she would look to move on. But when she is with her family and her friends, she tries to give the best of herself in that moment and disconnect completely from work and other distractions. And then we went on to talk about meditation, which has actually become more important to me in recent years. And she said that one Easter, when she was really burnt out, a caring friend told her that she looked awful and looked exhausted and burnt out, and so gave her a book about meditation. And this was a bit of a turning point for Rebecca, because then she started to meditate and became more mindful, and she found that because of that she could switch off and enjoy what she was engaged in at that moment. So flip between different parts of her life rather than try and balance them, feeling more balanced herself. And Anne spoke about quality, so quality of life and quality at work. She commits to taking responsibility for designing her own quality of life, committing to her home, her family, and her community. And she feels that as part of finding balance in her life, she feels responsibility to give back to her community and feels a great privilege in being able to do so. Balance is incredibly important to Liz, she said, because she's dealing with people. The people that she loves most in the world at home on one hand, and her colleagues who are also very important to her on the other. She also believes that feeling balanced is very important for mental health, and you need to address balance before you reach major pressure points that could result in, complete lack of productivity or not being able to focus on your work, or breakdown in your personal life. And it is important. Balance is very important no matter what your personal circumstances are. And Liz spoke a lot about how, it's not necessarily about women, it's not necessarily about families, but it's about balance and balance for everybody and getting things in perspective. So Sarah said she thinks that balance is important to her because it's about deciding what is the most important thing in that moment of time. Sarah spoke a lot also about setting boundaries around digital technology. So Liz had spoken about, how great technology is because it allows her to work from home and work away from the office and making life more flexible. Sarah said that when her children were younger, this was really great because you could, send emails from the football field and check on things while you're at swimming lessons and do the things that you needed to do as a mother and still do the things that you needed to do in your job. But now, as her children are getting into the teenage years and beyond, she sees it really important to set boundaries around digital technology. And she said she absolutely doesn't respond to emails at all now on Sundays, and she tries not to respond, to even turn on her phone for most of the weekend if it's at all possible. And she thinks that's really important because it allows her to focus on the important things in her life and organize time for the things that really matter to her, so family and friends. But she needs to, find time to focus on career, charity work, and fitness as well. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you to type some things into the chat box again, if we could just take a minute. So think about how you think work-life balance is important to you as a leader. If you are, any type of leader, any type of manager, think about how important it is for you personally in a management role, but also for keeping in mind, and you might call it work-life balance or whatever you call it, if but why it is important to keep that in mind when you are performing as a manager. So if anybody has any comments, that would be really appreciated if you could type those into the chat box. Anybody, Sophie?
Not yet, but we'll wait another minute. Okay, so one person has said that it's important to provide a positive model for colleagues. So what they mean by that is not being a hypocrite and telling them to go home when I'm staying back late. So you have to create a positive culture of respect and self-respect.
Excellent.
Another person has said, if your personal life is imbalanced, then your professional life will be imbalanced. And you need to remain balanced to set a good example for your staff and to be able to support them better.
Brilliant. So anything else?
Someone said that they're a teacher, not a manager, but they consider it for all of their colleagues.
Yeah, excellent. So, yes, so the first thing that it's not coming. Sophie?
Yeah.
My slide, here it is. Okay, now they all may come at once, unfortunately, because I just clicked. But yes, so Sujata said exactly what you guys have just said, that it's really important to lead by example and send the right messages about what you value. And if you have balance, and then you are likely to have a balanced team, which is likely to be a happier team. And she said that she's really had to put herself in check over the years because it's important not to place unspoken pressure on her team. Unwritten expectations can put too much pressure on a team, like one of the participants just said a moment ago. And that with her team, she tries to support each other in life as well as work and keep things flexible. So the focus is more on the work being done, not necessarily the time spent at their desks. And most of her team are actually, young women, women with young children. So she makes a conscious effort to value the work produced, not the time they're actually in the office. Rebecca also said, the lead by example theme, that all leaders must be role models. Rebecca said that she actually works really well, and I find that many Queenslanders do. She works really well very early in the morning, and she will frequently send emails at 5 a.m. But she doesn't expect this of her team, and she articulates that very clearly. She has conversations with them about how she works, and the way she defines balance and what works for her as a person is not a universal answer or approach. She does not expect her team to respond to her emails at 5 a.m., but this is just a good chance for her to clear her mind and get those emails out. And she feels that building a resilient team and playing to people's strengths is really key to having a balanced team and being a leader who supports this. Again, leading by example. So Anne said that it's important to lead from the front to inspire and construct teams to achieve quality outcomes. She says that you need to come up with a narrative, a story that describes your group, team, and then look at the evidence to support that. Think holistically about how what we do in the workplace fits with broader lives. She says that she leads very capable people as an academic leader and wants them to be aware of the trends and possibilities and develop a sense of agency to reflect what's happening in their lives and make wise work choices as well. She likes to encourage reflection on what her team does, how they do it in the workplace, and how work forms part of their everyday lives as well. Liz said it's important for her team to feel that she is open with them to discuss their priorities. And I must say I was in a teleconference with Liz not so long ago with a member of her team. I am not a member of her team, but somebody else in the room was. And this person had been doing some things out of hours, and she said, make sure you take time off for that. Don't work too hard. So definitely she does put her words into practice. She said that she wants a happy, well-functioning team, so she needs to work with them to build skills to meet life's challenges. And she said again, balance is not just important for working parents, but for everybody. Everybody is always balancing something. Perhaps it's health and they need to go to the gym at lunch or leave early, perhaps caring for elderly parents. But whatever it is, everybody has requirements on their time. And the best team is one that can perform and meet the requirements outside of work as well in as healthy a way as possible. It's incredibly important to acknowledge the impact on mental health, the recognition of the demands of people people have outside of their work lives, and need to have structures that acknowledge this as being important. Sarah said as a manager, she really values the idea of compassionate management, which is written up in the Harvard Business Review as well as a number of other places. And it involves spending time to walk in somebody else's shoes, take the time to listen to them. Everybody has a story, and this helps us support and understand our colleagues. So not just those people she manages, but anybody she works with, that everybody has a story and appreciates somebody there to listen to them. She encourages fitness in her teams to reduce stress and increase positivity and build stamina to meet work's demands. She also said that humour and wine are very important. So don't take things too seriously. And wine, I think, is very important in life for all kinds of reasons, but she was meaning there that it's important to socialise as a team because it can help build bonds, which leads to a happier workplace and greater productivity overall. So now some advice from everybody on finding balance, what they have done to find balance or what they wish they had done perhaps in some instances to find balance. So Sujata said that it's important to remember that balance is important for your career and for your life, that juggling is very difficult, but you need to stop and remember what you value. And I think that theme came out very much in all the conversations with these women, that it's important to stop and remember what's the most important thing to you and give your attention to what is most important. Make time for your family and friends, although guilt can be inevitable, and that life is very short. Enjoy it. Seems like a cliche, but so very true. Rebecca said she thinks that it's important for us to aspire to be great at what we do, whatever realm we are in at the moment. So whether that be a great mum, a great friend, a great, triathlete, whatever it is that we're doing at the moment, it's important to try to do your best at that and accept imbalance at times. Ride with the highs and lows of life, but be kind to yourself. No one ever has it all together, no matter how successful or happy they seem. Everyone has imbalance and challenges to deal with. So Anne spoke about setting realistic goals in realistic timeframes. Again, this idea that maybe you can have it all, but not at the same time. And she likes the idea of designing a sociogram. Who's who does what, who interacts with whom, all the different players and all the people that are important to you, and what their relationship is to you, to gain a fuller understanding of her own context. Setting realistic timeframes and aligning her goals with her strengths and the strategic goals of her organisation. And she spoke a lot about the words we choose and the power of our words being very important, that she thought that to find balance, and to help her team find balance, it was important to speak with authority to inspire and enable others. And that spread into her personal life and her community engagement as well. Liz thought that to find balance, you need to identify your goals and be clear about what your priorities are. Discuss with those key people in your life what life needs to look like and plan. Planning is very key to achieving balance. Gather a cheer squad around you, so a team of supporters that really support you in what you're doing. And whereas Sujata spoke about her father's wisdom, Liz spoke about her mother's wisdom, saying that, you don't get a medal at the end of the day for being the best mother with the best lunch boxes, etc., or the first one to be toilet trained in the mummies group. So don't put yourself into an incredible amount of stress for things that don't really matter in the long run. Sarah said it's important to manage technology and don't let it manage you. Don't take failure too seriously, as it helps you develop as a person. When you succeed, remember who helped you get there and try to bring them up as well. And always bring along a sense of humour. And there is a second bit of advice on finding balance from everybody as well. So Sujata spoke about her father being a wise man and a role model. He said that he missed many occasions that were important to his family life for important work events. He now remembers all the events he missed, but none of the reasons he had for missing them. So when you're making choices about where to be, think about what you will remember. Rebecca thought that it was important to surround yourself with other good people. Seek out mentors and leaders who inspire. Have a support network in place, be open to new things, and find passion for your career and your life. Anne said, identify what you have to contribute. Speak with authenticity to inspire the best in others, and remember the importance of words. I think I mentioned that before. And Liz said, acknowledge when things don't work out. Be less judgmental and share more. Celebrate when things do work out. Be gentle with yourself. And I like this. Schedule a meeting with yourself every day, even if it is only for 5 minutes, just to stop, meditate, stare at a wall, breathe, do whatever it is you need to do, but just think about you, focusing on you at that moment. And Sarah said, always make time for exercise and fitness to keep positivity and stamina. Always be available to listen to somebody and their story. And remember, what really counts is your relationships at home and at work. And here are just some of my ideas about finding balance that I developed pretty much through listening to these women, but also from my own experiences in life. I think building a network is absolutely the most important thing that you need to do. And I have found that my network has supported me very much in my life, you know, with having places for your children to go when you are at work and having people who can step in an emergency. We don't have any family in Brisbane. So building a network is incredibly important, but also these networks in work are very important too, to enable you to do your work more effectively. And these networks can often overlap. Like I have a network through my children that has helped me do many things within my work, including, you know, find internships for international students. If I didn't have that network in my life, I wouldn't have been able to do my work. Empowering others is very important. We may feel indispensable. I definitely feel indispensable at moments in my children's lives, but none of us are. We need to teach others to do what we can do and trust them to get it done, both at home and at work. So there's nothing that somebody else can't do for you in the workplace. And equally, you know, trust your husband, trust your friends, trust whoever to do what you might need to do at home if you are not at home at that moment as well. Look to mentors in parenting, mentors in the way you work. I have many of these role models and mentors in my life. Being on the English Australia board certainly opened me to mentors in the realm of work, which I really appreciated. But having a mentor can help you work out how to put your time and energy into things that are really important, and they can give you inspiration. Be fully where you are. I think this is, for me, was one of the key messages that came out of all of the conversations, and probably the thing that I learned most and have started to change most as a result of this preparation for this webinar, that there is still, you know, it's very important to be where you are in that moment. Have an hour, have 10 minutes, have a day, have a week completely focused on what you're doing in that moment, and then flip from that to the next thing you're doing rather than worrying about what you're not doing. Have boundaries, but keep them flexible. It is important to have time and space for life and time and space for work. We bring ourselves to work. You know, our work is enriched by who we are and our life, but it is also important to make space for your work and your life separately. I know as a teacher for years, I've always taken marking and preparation home, but it is important to take work home, but it's important that work doesn't take over our homes as well, which I've been guilty of at times. Think this is probably what gets me out of bed in the morning, practicing gratitude. Work-life balance is really a bit of a first world problem. And we are really actually all very fortunate to have work and to have lives to balance work with. So even when things feel completely overwhelming and really difficult, stop and be grateful that, that you have what you have, which is what I do. It's probably the only thing that kept me sane when all my children were very small. Know what is most important to you and keep that in focus. So raising my kids to be the best people they can be, nurturing my relationship with my husband, supporting the teachers that I work with to be the best they can be, and guiding students to really make the most of their opportunities are what matters to me. So there's nothing else. If you're doing those things, nothing else is really worth losing sleep over. They're just the extras that you get done when you can. Don't forget you. I know I was very guilty of this for years. You can burn out mentally and physically, and then you're no good to anybody. So self-care is not a luxury, which I've been guilty of thinking that it is, but it is not optional. Think about who you want to be. And when life throws you curveballs, which it inevitably does, find a new point of balance. And attempt to manage the work-life interface. Try not to bring your bad day home with you, or your bad morning at work, bad morning at home to work with you. And the final one for me was when I was speaking to Sarah. She spoke a lot about exercise because she's incredibly fit and I am not. But she said, even if it's just about walking the dog, making time for fitness, even if it's just walking your dog. And this has been something I've kind of said ever since the interview with Sarah to myself, I'm walking the dog. That's a step in the right direction. So even if you just walk the dog. So I'm sure everybody has some area in their life that they feel is quite out of balance. So for you, if you think of an area that you think is quite out of balance, think about, just walking the dog, just doing that little bit each day that is moving towards having more balance in that area of your life. And we have 7 minutes for questions or comments if necessary. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. If anybody has any questions or would like to make any comments, then type them into the chat box now. Okay, so somebody's written quite a few comments agreeing with the points about health and fitness being crucial, and also agreeing about what you said, agreeing with what you said about looking at the big picture. And they've said that even the most modest job is unique and important, and it's yours.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Somebody said, thanks so much, Donna, for an informative and nuanced presentation.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, somebody has said this. I'm interested in the concept of ever-present guilt that you mentioned. Do you think this is something that women uniquely feel?
Yes, interestingly, I have definitely felt this, and I mentioned it from my own perspective, and Sujata spoke about it. The other women didn't really speak about it, and in fact, Liz is a bit younger than I am, or quite a bit younger than I am, and she didn't feel that guilt was really part of her take on the whole balance thing. So I think it's definitely women more than men, but I think it also may be women of a particular age. So yes, I think it's not unique to women, but much more, because we are taught, or some of us are taught, that we have to be the best we can be in the home, take responsibility for bringing up the children, and if things go wrong, it's it's on us. And also we have to, we can have it all in the workplace. We can have this fabulous job, we can do these things, whatever that job might be. 100 years ago that wasn't an option. So I think in not doing both things as well as we think we should, guilt comes into play, but I think it may be less so with younger women.
Okay, great. Okay,
Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Oh, I think it does answer the question. Okay, somebody else has said, thank you, Donna. There's lots of thank you, Donnas. I won't repeat them all, but there are a lot of them. But they've said that the takeaway from this session for them is to be fully where you are. And I agree with that came through a lot in Rebecca's comments and also your comments, Donna.
I think it came through in a lot of the comments from the women I interviewed, and was, probably my biggest takeaway too.
Okay. Somebody else has just made a comment about guilt. So this person has said that guilt is nature's way of keeping us on our toes and making sure we do our best for the generation following us. If you feel guilt, it means you have high standards and a strong sense of responsibility. So why do we need to call it guilt?
Oh, thank you. I like that. Sophie, can you copy and paste that to me? I like that very much.
Sure, yeah.
That's true, yeah. And Liz said she didn't have guilt when we actually talked about that. And that was because she said that she felt even though she wasn't spending the time that she might otherwise have spent with her daughter, she was an incredible role model, showing her what women could do. So it is about how you perceive it, true, and what we call it, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to think about it, actually, what you want to call it. Somebody else has said that they like the comment about leading by example and that this is something that they need to work on. Yeah, great. I also think that was very pertinent. Somebody's asked about the comment that one of the women made to let go of deadlines in pressing times. And their question is for you, Donna, have you ever had to do this? And how would you suggest going about doing it?
Okay, yes, I have had to do it. Absolutely. When nursing very sick family members and, in raising children, how to go about doing it. In my situation, it has been to rely on those around you, your colleagues, your team, your managers. But I think this would be situational. And everybody may need to do it in different ways. Sarah was the one that made that comment, and she said that she still did her job during that time, but she didn't do any of the other things that academics are supposed to do, like publish research. She just had a year where she just didn't prioritize her career, and she took as much leave as she was able to do while still keeping employed during that year. So I think it's different for different people and depends on your work context, really.
Yeah, sure. In those situations, I always like to think about how I feel when somebody else has to let go of deadlines for personal reasons. And I'm always very compassionate towards those people, and I don't think that it reflects on them badly at all professionally. And so hopefully if you have to do it yourself, you can give yourself that same grace and be flexible with yourself as well.
Yes.
One of the men that we have in the audience today has said, thank you, Donna.
Yay.
And they said that it's a sellout crowd here at ANZ Stadium.
Thank you.
Very tongue-in-cheek. All right. Well, we have to finish now, but I'd like to So thank you to Donna on behalf of English Australia for sharing this wisdom from these inspiring women and also for sharing your own personal stories. Thank you also to the women that you interviewed. You mentioned at the beginning of your session that Aparna Jacob and I had invited you to do this session, and I think that we invited you to present the session because we felt inspired by you knowing all the things that you juggle in your life. And I think for us, we felt that it was important to recognize people that inspire us and talk to them. So that's why we asked you to do the webinar. So thank you very much for accepting and also for sharing your personal story.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And I hope it was worthwhile for the people that listened. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks to everyone for attending as well.
Bye.
Bye.